Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Planet Kiss. We have finally made it to the Kiss Expo. It's happening right across the street over there. I've never been to one of these before, so who knows what we're going to find, who we're going to see. You never know. I don't want to talk too much. I'm just excited to go inside, so let's get to it. All right, I'm just kidding. We're not actually there anymore. That was just a little bit of a clip I filmed beforehand. But I was, in fact, there at the big expo this weekend, and as you just heard, this was my first time at a Kiss Expo, and what an experience it was. From seeing Paul Stanley in the flesh, without makeup, talking to us, answering questions, hanging out, and even meeting him, to watching Eric Singer, Todd Kearns, Brent Fitz, and those other two guys whose names I forget, sorry, rip the whole entire Destroyer album, to even meeting James DeBello from Detroit Rock City and shooting the shit for a minute, getting some stuff signed, and getting a picture. Dare I say this weekend was quite the trip. In all seriousness, though, it was crazy for me as a first-time Kiss Expo goer. And I feel like I'm just now coming off the high of it enough to actually sit down and talk about it for anybody who wasn't there or for anybody who just wants to hear how my first-time experience went. So here it is. I live in Columbus, so I got up at the ass crack of dawn on Saturday morning to make my trip west with my two lovely parents, my dad, who's also a huge Kiss fan, and my mom, who got us the tickets and the meet and greet passes and just likes to watch us have fun. But of course, no ride to a Kiss event can be entirely smooth in my short time making these trips. And as I was leaving a gas pump at one of our fill stops, somehow I wasn't looking. Maybe I was looking this way, or I might have been looking down at my phone, but somehow just turned my car right into a pole at the gas station and knocked my light out. My car's all busted up now, which is just so stupid, entirely my fault, and it definitely had us in a bit of a funk as we were continuing to make our way there. But our spirits soon lifted as we were getting closer and closer to the event, and especially once we got there and saw the big sign outside McDonald's that said, "Welcome Kiss fans," that I fucking forgot to film. But anyway, the accident quickly became tomorrow's problem, and we were just ready to rock. The event was at an Embassy Suites in Plainfield, Indiana, and this hotel was fucking huge. We walked in through the main doors, and the lady at the desk told us to walk a half mile down the hallway to get to where the event was, which I know isn't really long if you're in a car or if you're running or something, but for a casual stroll, it's a bit of a walk. There was also a few different events going on there too. I think there was a wedding happening, and then there was also some sort of class that was going on right near the event. But at long last, we finally found the giant line of white people all wearing Kiss shirts. We knew we were in the right place, so we joined that line, got our passes, and headed in. Finally a room where everybody is wearing a Kiss shirt. This is my kind of place. We got there literally 10 minutes, even a little less than 10 minutes before Paul's Q&A was supposed to start, but fortunately and unfortunately, it ended up getting pushed back a half hour anyway. But at 12:30, Keith took the stage, the man himself, to welcome us and apologize for the delay and tell us that the Star Child was, in fact, in the building.
The Star Child himself. Welcome to the Paul Stanley
I really don't get too starstruck, honestly. I've worked at a comedy club, and I've worked at music venues and stuff in the past. But to me, meeting any member of Kiss, and an original member at that, is like the star to meet for me, or even just see in the flesh. So being as close as I was to Paul, and I was still pretty far away, it was pretty wild, pretty surreal, and what was even crazier was the fact that we were going to be meeting him in just a few short hours. Anyway, the Q&A was okay. A lot of the questions were kind of like more personal to Paul, or were kind of about like recent Kiss shows. I was really hoping somebody would ask something where we would hear about some old Kiss lore, about backstage life, or, you know, recording stories or member stories or whatever it may be. Sharing a hotel with Ace, you know, riding in the back of the limo with Gene. None of that, though. But it was still cool just to see him sit there and answer the questions. And he's so political in the way he talks, too. It's so funny. I learned pretty quickly after a few questions that he answers everything the same way. Like, all of his answers are pretty neutral. They don't pander towards one way or the other. And everything morphs into some life lesson or some sort of moral by the end of it. But of course, he spreads nothing but positivity in these messages, too. So I'd rather him take his time up there to, you know, preach positivity on us than just shrug off all the questions or be some sort of egotistical douche in some way. I think that's also just Paul, especially in his older age. So yeah, all in all, Q&A still gets a thumbs up from me. The Q&A concluded, we did a little walk around. I visited the guy who makes all the replicas for the Kiss costumes they wear on stage. We also ended up going over and talking to the Detroit Rock City guys who were there for a second, just paying our homage to the movie. I grew up on that movie, dude. I've literally been watching that movie my entire life. So said what up to those guys, and James DeBello actually responded just by saying, "Hunk of fucking cheese." That's my favorite line. That was just so perfect. But enough about that. Let's get to the good stuff already, folks. We shopped and shopped and shopped. The event that Xander threw back in December was overwhelming in its own way, so this was on an entirely different level. Record displays that were arranged in chronological order with the album art on the dividers, ticket stubs, guitar picks, Eric Singer's drumsticks from a 1995 convention, a Kiss bike with a gold Destroyer record on it. Then it was time to begin the long roller coaster ride, wait in line to meet Paul Stanley and even get some things signed by him. Again, to meet any one of the original guys for me is like the pinnacle of meeting any sort of celebrity or star, and this is the star child we're talking about here. So yeah, ever since I got my tickets to this, the moment has just been replaying over and over in my head in 1,000 different ways. What am I going to say? What Kiss shirt am I going to wear? I need to thank him for the music. I need to show him my Kiss stick and poke tattoo. That was my first ever tattoo. And yeah, 2 hours later, before I knew it, we were next in line. The wait honestly wasn't too bad for me, especially maybe just because I knew what was at the end of it. But yeah, once again, we were right there. At one point, I literally accidentally made eye contact with Paul through the curtains, which that in itself is kind of a weird feeling. And finally, we walked in with our stuff, and Paul was sitting right there. I sat all my stuff down at the table for him, and in the short time I knew I had with him, my brain just told me to tell him, this guy right here, pointing to my dad, raised me on your music, so I've known it my entire life. It's literally in my DNA at this point. It's a part of me. So thank you for doing this. And he just told me to make sure that my dad knows how appreciated he is for turning me on to Kiss's music so young. And then it was my dad's turn, and Paul told him that he was very appreciated by me. And as he was signing my dad's original orange Tyvek jacket, I tried to take a quick video of that happening, and my dad snuck a picture of me actually talking to Paul when I was telling him all those things I just told you, and that was it. Oh yeah, Paul also did tell me to not put my picture back into the plastic until the paint marker dries, and that was it. Literally 20 seconds long, if that, but I know that's how those things go, so it's totally cool. Plus, me and my dad still managed to do the sneaky picture, the sneaky video thing while we were getting our stuff signed. It just makes me so happy to know that a picture of me and Paul Stanley talking to each other exists now, even if we're not like posing for the camera. I almost think that's kind of cooler to me in a different way. Nice candid pic of me and Paul shooting the shit, even though I was definitely just gushing over him and we were not shooting the shit. After that, we took everything back to our hotel, made our way back over to this hotel, came back to shop a little more, and just chill until the music portion of the evening began. It started off with John Corabi, who was playing just like some covers and some songs from some things he's been a part of over the years. Dude looks homeless, but he's got some fucking pipes. And then it was time for Eric Singer and Friends, who I was particularly excited for as somebody who's a fan of those Handsome Devils performances at the Kiss Cancer Goodbye events where they play all the deep cut Kiss albums in their entirety. So I was ready to see Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz rip out some fucking Kiss deep cuts, especially with Eric Singer on the drums, and just to celebrate Kiss and the whole reason that we're all here, but that didn't necessarily happen. But what did happen was a huge shock to everybody in the crowd when the lights went down and the band was standing on stage, and who else comes up on stage to say one last hello but Paul Stanley. I mean, at least me and my parents, we for sure thought that he was on his PJ heading back to Vegas or wherever he was off to next by now. But lo and behold, he was still there. He comes out and says all of his friends are on stage and they all know how to play his music so well that he's just gonna sit back and watch, which is obviously just not gonna go over well for all these old rabid Kiss fans in the room. Of course, he knows this though, so he gives in by saying, all right, I'm gonna start this one and then I'm out. The room erupts and I am simply in more disbelief than I've ever been about anything in my entire life. But as always, I am ready to rock. So they rip right into Detroit Rock City, and Paul sings that first "Feel Uptight" on a Saturday night. And dude, that just hit me. He nailed that shit off the top. I feel like he almost maybe even blew his voice out doing just that one line. But dude, when he just delivered that first line, it hit me, and I knew that I just had to keep holding my arms up with my camera and film the rest of the song, which I did, and you can now watch here on my YouTube channel. Halfway through the song, he did in fact split and leave the stage. The band continued to play the rest of the song and the rest of Destroyer, which we kind of picked up that was happening when their third song was God of Thunder, and you know the one that goes before that. About 3 or 4 songs in, though, we look over to the side, and Paul is ground level, side stage, watching the band with us. Not with me personally, but like watching alongside the rest of this big group of people. Eric Singer and Friends was cool, but like the Q&A, I do just have one little qualm with the fact that they played all of Destroyer, and they did it really well, and it was sick. But after Do You Love Me, they just decided to start playing a bunch of random 70s songs by other bands. Which, don't get me wrong, it was still cool, and they still rocked it, but I thought we were here for Kiss, dude. Plus, you know we've all seen the Handsome Devils performances, dude. We want to see you guys rip those deep cuts. But I understand, it was billed as Eric Singer and Friends, so they can do with that whatever they want. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to play a bunch of Kiss stuff. But after I kind of got what was happening in like the 4th or 5th song that wasn't Kiss, I was just kind of ready to get out of there, and that's what we did. And that was Saturday. Sunday, we planned to wake up and hit the road right away, but we actually kind of decided to pop back over there one last time just to make one last round around all the vendors. My dad bought some of Barry Levine's prints, and this is actually when I got my Detroit Rock City DVD signed by James DeBello, as well as talked to him for a minute, shot the shit about the movie, and we also got a picture.
So that's what the extras got, a free concert. And the thing was, they recreated the whole, I think they had the whole stage. They shipped it out from LA.
I didn't want to be annoying and shove my camera in his face, you know, so I tried to keep it pretty low-key, but that's that. I also ran into Space Fraley real quick, which was so sick. We follow each other on Instagram, and that guy's just so cool and funny, and I walked in, saw him in the flesh, dude, and I was like, whoa, I bolted right over to him. And I was just like, dude, I'm playing at Kiss. And then, yeah, we talked for a second. That was cool. Said what up to Xander one last time over at the Kiss Museum table, and that was basically it, dude. Headed out, and that concludes my first ever experience at a Kiss Expo. And of course, as you heard, I mentioned some shopping. So now it's time for the real fun part where I'm going to show you what I got. So first, I don't know if you can tell in the view or not, or if my lighting is fucked, but I did have Paul sign this poster. I'll put a picture up or something, but I did have Paul sign this. The point is that I want to get the rest of the members to sign it eventually. And then Paul also signed this, which is just a picture from the Unmasked tour, I think, which, as you guys know, my favorite album, one of my favorite eras. So got that signed by Paul, and then on the other side here, the Detroit Rock City cast with the original members of Kiss, and it's signed by James. I remember he was super stoked on the fact that it was the original lineup. And he also signed my DVD, which, as you can tell there, has obviously been through some stuff, but yeah, still very cool. Next up, I'm going to show a couple things that were just kind of like I spent the last of my money on them. Just a couple cute little trinkets. So as you can probably already tell, I definitely need some more Eric Carr up in this collection, and they had a whole Eric Carr table there. I don't know if it's like the Eric Carr Foundation or the Eric Carr organization or the estate, whatever it is. But yeah, had some extra spare cash in my wallet, and I needed some Eric. So I got the Eric Carr Rubik's Cube. This is a, yeah, it's got pictures of Eric without makeup on it. It's got him with makeup on it. And then we also have the Chikara on it, which is sweet. So I can kind of just flip it to any direction, depending on whatever mood I'm in. Probably should have got the vinyl or something, honestly. But once again, I just need like Eric Carr's face in this collection somewhere. So next up, got a little bit of something for nostalgic purposes. This is something that I've seen online before. It now goes for like 40 or even $50, depending on where you look. But they were selling this at a table for just 15 bucks. So had to get some childhood back into my life. I got the Tooth Tunes, Kiss, Rock and Roll All Night toothbrush. Definitely had this as a kid. I can't remember if they had another one that played another Kiss song as you were brushing your teeth, but I know, you know, obviously they had Rock and Roll All Night. So yeah, again, I had this as a kid, so I just kind of saw it for crazy cheap, and yeah, gonna put that up there for now. Maybe I'll use this someday. Who knows? Probably not, though. All right, moving on to the Music Man. First up, I got an Off the Soundboard CD. This is Tokyo 2001, so it's Ace Frehley and Eric Singer, which I just thought was cool. Honestly, that whole lineup switch that was happening in the early 2000s with them is still kind of all jumbled up in my brain, like the timeline of it. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of interesting that this is Ace and Eric Singer, as opposed to Peter and Tommy. And now for the most exciting thing, records. I got two different records here that are both on very different sides of the Kiss spectrum, but are definitely cool for their own reasons. So chronological order here. Let's go ahead and do it. First Kiss record. First Kiss record right there. And what's cool about this is the second pressing. So this is technically, I think, the first one with Kissin' Time on it. Somebody correct me if that's not right below. But yeah, I needed the first Kiss record on vinyl anyway, so decided to get that. And then on the complete opposite side of the Kiss spectrum, we got something here that I think is just as unique. I'm almost even a little more stoked about it than that last record, and that is Carnival of Souls, German pressing. This is cool for two reasons to me. One, because it's the first German record that I have, and also because it's Carnival of Souls, which was only printed on vinyl in 2014. So yeah, this is just very cool to me. I feel like it has multiple layers of coolness. So I've also spun both of these on my record player since I've been back from the Expo. They both sound great. And last but not least, I had to get myself a Hey Man Nice Kiss shirt somewhere. So stopped by Kiss Army Warehouse and got myself this Love Gun shirt. It was actually my dad who got it. Like they were offering him a buy one get one or something like that. So that concludes my haul from what I got at the Kiss Expo, as well as my experience. It was a truly insane, epic weekend, something I will never forget, and 10 out of 10 would absolutely love to go back to another one. So thanks for watching this all the way through if you did. Stay tuned for more videos in the coming weeks. I also need to start saying this more in my videos, but I now have my background music that I use for these videos available over on my Bandcamp for purchase if you're any kind of creator who needs just some royalty-free background rock music for your projects, as well as now Planet Kiss stickers, all available over at my Bandcamp. I'll put the link down in the description, so if any of that interests you, go check that out. Thank you guys once again. I love you guys. For Ace Frehley, Eric Carr, and Mark St. John, I am Planet Kiss, signing off.